Alright, time for another Draft Physics video presentation. DraftScience here on YouTube. So, comments. I am changing the policy or whatever. I'll just block stuff, and that's just the way it's going to be, and tough. I think I've already proven the point that the critics have nothing to say. I'm not blocking anybody who has anything reasonable to say, or to say it in a reasonable way, and all that crap. So, we're done with it. Yes. Just be at my discretion. Tough. You can't say what you need to say the way I want you to say it, then too bad, I guess. My problem is I want 100% agreement with your model. It works. I understand it completely. Okay. I mean, it's just a little bit of an overstatement. I mean, I say it's complete. It's complete relative to their model in terms of completeness. But you can't really understand it completely, I don't think, yet. Just because there's little bits that still have to be explained. The difference between, say, I'm working on now, the difference between a perfectly reflective surface, a mirror surface, and transmission surface. Because, in some sense, the same thing is happening. In the sense that there's a complete transmission, and you have to figure out, is there any momentum extended to the objects that's transmitting the light, let's say, or that's reflecting the light. And those are questions I haven't completely answered yet. Anyway, I don't know what I can say in the comments to contribute to expanding a model that's already complete. Well, I mean, I think there are subjects that can be more deeply explained, and maybe the key thing is to explain why you are convinced, or why your native bias is to say, yes, this makes more sense, because obviously other people are having a hard time seeing why it makes sense. So maybe you should explain why it makes sense. So usually I keep my mouth shut. Well, it's okay. It's just a little lazy, maybe. I don't know if it would do any good to just merely sing your praises. Yes, me is irrelevant. The argument is that there's a mechanical universe. Everybody should really kind of know that the process of evolution is very mechanical. The process of education, just learning through your life, is very mechanical. We all know how tedious practicing is and all this kind of crap, and we know this is how things are made. And these silly notions of this woo-verse that has all these magical properties in the places we can't see is just kind of childishly stupid, to think that, we only see magic, in the parts we can't understand, can't see. But you do deserve praises, regardless. Again, it doesn't, the me part is sort of irrelevant to the physics. I mean, the me part is certainly relevant to me, but it's not relevant to the physics argument. Anyway, congratulations, sir. Yes, on what? Going to end up being another Van Gogh or something. I'll be long dead before I get congratulated in any way that means anything. Sorry. Not that what you're saying doesn't mean anything. I'm just saying in any material sense. My words may mean nothing whatsoever to you. Well, I don't think you should say that. All this stuff means something. It's all part of the fun of being alive, is these interactions and worrying about people and caring about people and all this crap. And it's just really quite horrible. I mean, it's just a horrible, awful circumstance we're all stuck in. This, when are you going to get tipped into the boiling pot? But I offer them in solidarity. Yeah, I know, but misery loves company or something like that. It's solidarity with what? Blah blah blah. So anyway, thank you. Sorry, it's just not relevant enough. I'm stuck with the new comment system that YouTube is forcing everybody to use now. I mean, the new whatever control panel thing. It's just so stupid. All right, I think it would be helpful for your theory to write a paper. Yes, we've already done this on your physics. Yes, I know you think it would be helpful, but frankly, if I can't get it published anywhere, what's the point? So it wouldn't make much difference. But yes, it's time to, I mean, I do need to have some technical documentation where it's all written down so it's not in a bunch of videos. But as pointed out, I mean, if I can't convince people by drawing them pictures and doing this whole talking about it thing and explaining how the evidence is incredibly weak, it's, if you really looked at it, you'd see that it's just not good enough for the level of confidence they have in these bullshit theories. And the theories themselves are, frankly, silly. If you think about them enough, you'll say, I understand it's silly. But anyway, like you've previously stated, yeah, the probability of someone finding your website through Google search engine seems very low. Well, the probability of finding it with a better written paper isn't going to help any either. Because of the algorithm. Yes, the whole search engine thing is broken, and why we gave the whole thing away to this stupid capitalist bullshit company is just so idiotic. The same problem goes for your YouTube page. Yes, and YouTube obviously it promotes content. It doesn't just show you relevant content. It doesn't make any best effort to find what's relevant. It makes the best effort to find out what's popular. And so it's always lowest common denominator bullshit. No matter what the subject is, they'll turn it into frogs. And if I or some other viewer would like to share your theory with someone, a document would be very helpful. Well, I don't think the links to the subject videos would be all that complicated in terms of being helpful either. So I don't know if I really go for that. I mean, that's just your fine, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't think so, but fine. Ken reminds me of Jessica Yannick, whatever that is, LOL. Yeah, I just couldn't care less. I mean, these references to your pop culture bullshit, uninteresting. I mean, frankly, okay, I'm supposed to know who that is. Sorry, just couldn't care less. Some say Gary drives really slow, so this is for sale, baby, whatever that means. So this is the kind of thing that'll just get deleted right away. Drives really slow in the ultra fast lane. Well, okay, so this is just a waste of time. So we'll just get rid of it. There's some more crap I can see coming up. More 3 names. Anyway, some video. Alright, so this is John Plant. So I understand this guy was commenting on my YouTube channel for years. And we even exchanged some videos. He's a religious kook. I finally got to the point where it was just enough, and I blocked him because his comments were always just poetic crap. He's in some wishy-washy place. He believes in a God who is basically a drunk, slipped on his own vomit, and went into a coma. Some sort of bullshit like that. He has a God theory that's just stupid. I mean, the regular one is bad enough, but his version of it is even dumber. And you're just saying, why am I interacting with somebody after years of interactions, still can't figure out that believing in a God is childish nonsense. It's silly. It's just absolutely silly behavior. Okay, some video goes, you said you never block people for being nice. That's not what I said. Okay, so fine. Whatever nice is, right? You did indeed block me from the Amendum channel. Yes, and I did it quite publicly and right there in your face. So where's the big surprise? I finally said I'm done with your incessant religious proselytizing, and you're not going to do it on my channel, so fuck off. After years of you being able to do it on my channel. For just saying that I've seen God's work in one of your videos. Yes, that's probably the most offensive thing you can say, is to somehow smear your silly fantasies on me. Okay, yeah, that's going to really irritate me. So yes, you figured out the button to press where I'm going to say fuck you. Okay, everything I do has nothing to do with your silly fantasies. And I don't like you dressing them up in your silly fantasies. It's like if there was a statue of Gary and somebody put, pink panties on it and then, tutu or something, I'd find it offensive. And I find what you're doing offensive. How evil of me. Yes, you're an asshole. You are a hypocrite. Fuck you. I let you talk for years, idiot. But trust me, I'm honest enough to know that I am too. Yes, again, you're just all this bullshit. That's all you are. You're full of shit. You know, the same old bullshit. You try to, you know, it's like any other used car salesman, all this sucking up. Oh, you look marvelous. Oh, you sure know how to buy shoes. You're a really smart guy. So here's a car to buy. It goes with your shoes. Anyways, you're a total asshole, and if you're honest with yourself, and I know you're capable of it, you'd agree. Total asshole, no. Compared to you assholes, I'm fucking magnificent. You know, compared to you shit, you pieces of crap. Yeah, I'm an asshole, but not nearly as big a retard as you. Meaning I'm not better than you. Well, I'm better than you. I know as much or as little as you do. Fuck that. That's bullshit. You clearly are ignorant as fuck to think there's any reason to think intelligence has something to do with making meat grinders. I mean, that's just too fucking stupid. I mean, even Homer Simpson given the choice. Oh, let's make a rational machine that's pleasant and wonderful. Or let's make a meat grinder that grinds up little sensitive creatures and brutalizes them to death. Even he could figure it out, fuckhead. I even truly believe you mean your best. Biggest kudos. Yeah, biggest from what? From an idiot, a retard, a lunatic. But you're less than your own standard, I'm less than my own. Yeah, so this is just more wishy-washy mush. Not trying to win any argument here. Well, you're making an argument. You're making some argument that somehow I'm a hypocrite and I've been terribly unfair to you. Bull fucking shit. Because trying to win is contention. Fuck that. All you win for all I care. All of you win for all I care. Well, then what are you talking for? Losers shouldn't... You got no right to make any claims anymore if you're claiming you lost. Well, then you lost the argument. Quit making one. And now you block me again on this channel too. Yeah, because it's totally fucking irrelevant, and your argument, even though I'm letting it... I'm reading it and playing along like somehow you have an argument to make, you're still fucking wrong on their argument. So the argument is irrelevant to the fucking video content, the purpose of this channel. And besides that, you're wrong on top of it. God won, wins forever and rules, in a coma. Fact, no argument. Yeah, that's just bullshit. Oh yeah, that's not an argument. I'm not making a contention. I'm not fucking distracting the subject to some silly crap that can't possibly be the truth. What video of his did you see God's work? I'm not religious, but I'm curious nonetheless. Yeah, who knows? But anyway, yeah, fuck off with this shit. Irrelevant. Alright. So I think that's it. Oh, shoes never worn. So I don't know what that could possibly mean, but let's block them again. And then let's block them again. The other white meat. Whatever that could fucking mean. Block them again. Alright, so there. We're done with that. So, I guess what we'll do... I mean, in my subscriptions, I am subscribed to that silly physics girl still. And, I saw this and I'm like, what the fuck? She's doing a Ligo video? It's only like 4 years late. You know, why are there giant concrete tunnels in the desert? Well, because we'll waste preposterous money on silly, pussy, girly physics. No, gravity's waving to us. Bullshit. So anyway, I mean, it's just amazing. 4 years late. She does a gravitational wave video. So yeah, we gotta laugh at it. And you can't hear parts of it, which is amazing also, right? She's making all this fucking money and she can't, do put microphones, make sure there's no car noise, blah blah blah. Look at this guy's face. Jump cuts, logo, blah blah blah. This is physics.
There's this place in the Washington desert where giant...
Yeah, she is a little big, isn't she? Yeah.
Concrete tunnels.
Oh, concrete tunnels.
For miles out into the sand. For 20 years, they protected a strange technology that will become humanity's first glimpse.
Okay, so let's understand. A technology has never even been proven, never been documented, never been in any way verified or validated. The whole idea of an interferometer. They keep playing this game like, okay, we have a beam splitter, it makes two equal beams. The two equal beams go somewhere and they interfere with each other somehow. Well, we already know from the single slit experiment, double slit experiment with the single photons sent through that it's single photons that are interfering with themselves, right? So it's not a bunch of photons interfering with each other, it's single photons interfering with themselves. Well, have they ever done the single photon experiment with the interferometer to see if that still works? And what's the theory? Where does this magic happen where the photon splits in two? And I mean, none of it's documented as any kind of. There's no theory behind it. That's just, frankly, that's it. There's no theory. There's just this fake assumption. Well, somewhere it happens. Yeah, the photon, cancel and all this kind of crap. When did you demonstrate it? When did you prove any of that? So, I mean, obviously, I'm saying yes, interferometers can be detectors. There because the light is diverging. One of the beams diverges because it goes through a diffraction gradient, and the light diverges and spreads. So it means the longer the distance you spread it, the more visible that distance becomes, the spread of the light, the divergence. And so you can detect changes in length by detecting changes in the spread of the light. So it is a detector, but it's not nearly as sensitive as they think it is, or that they've ever proven it to be.
Into an unseen universe. Hey, I'm Diana, and you're watching Physics Girl.
Yeah.
Last month, we traveled to Hanford,
you need to
Washington,
tell me that
to see
shit,
a site
right? You always need to tell me that shit. So I'm too stupid to know what video I'm watching.
where gravitational waves
Look at the guy's face.
were first detected. Because gravitational waves are one of my obsessions.
Right, so this is her obsession. So she's doing a video 4 years after the big announcement, we've done it, right? And the theory is that what the theory they made up is that these giant things collide with each other, and solar masses worth of energy. That means all of the mass of the sun, like 2 or 3 of those, all of the mass of the sun worth of energy is released in an instant. And it's all released as some sort of wave in gravity. So it isn't released in like light or radiation or microwaves or radio waves or any of this other stuff. No, it's released as this little kind of energy. And for some mechanical reason for which there is no explanation for why it's released that way. Why it does that, and all these other things on Earth can't do that, or in the universe, as far as we know, can't produce this gravity force stuff.
Gravitational waves are invisible, inaudible waves in space itself.
Inaudible waves in space itself. What, does that even make any sense? Yes, right. It's not a medium like the atmosphere. So obviously audio wouldn't. Yes, of course we wouldn't be able to hear them. Yeah.
And time rippling through the universe.
Right, in such a way as not to disturb anything around them. So they just send this magical gravity stuff that somehow doesn't push anything away. So it's gravity, but it doesn't push. Somehow doesn't evacuate the space around it. And it doesn't break things into millions of pieces. It doesn't do any of that kind of crap. It just somehow magically, all of these 2 solar masses, which again is like everything in the universe for 10 minutes, if you took what the whole universe is producing in 10 minutes or something, that would equal a solar mass. I mean, it's a insanely preposterous, huge E equals mc squared kind of. It's taking every atom in the sun and reducing it to its elemental bits with velocity, the force inside of it. It was a insane amount of force. And this force somehow just magically travels through space without disturbing anything. Just shakes the stuff a little bit. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So you're thinking about things that are billions of light years away, and events like the the explosions on the sun, sunspots. Those explosions are so much closer to us, and they should be able to detect every single one of those. If they're going to claim they can detect things that far away, they should be able to detect sunspots easy. No problem. They should be able to detect every earthquake, every explosion in China or something. They should be able to detect all that stuff. I never heard of them detecting any of it. Is there any evidence they can detect anything? No.
Through Earth, through us, all the time. It turns out space-time can stretch.
It turns out. I mean, yeah, we proved it with our imagination. And of course we can synthesize a silly drawing of some kind of wooey bullshit. Look, this is what the elemental universe is doing. It's some kind of, look at this, it's like a wormy thingy. We've proven none of this. We just made it all the fuck up.
Like a slinky. And
I mean, it's like making up a God theory, right? It's the same thing. We're just saying, okay, we're going to explain why there's evolution. Oh, well, that's because, yeah, God got drunk, slipped, fell into a coma. I mean, what's going to be the... You can come up with any kind of stupid-ass story and make it conform to the facts, because you don't have any facts. The number of facts is so small that you can make anything fit the facts.
can carry waves across the universe.
My professors told me we don't know when we're going to discover gravitational waves. It could be in the next 10 years, it could be in the next 50. We don't know if this detector is going to work. And then when the announcement was made in 2015...
Yeah, we all fell for it because we do that. We fall for it. And let's understand, the guy who worked on this is the same asshole who did the movie Interstellar, which is just the dumbest portrayal of gravitational physics that could ever be conformed or built. It's such a preposterously silly description of all of Einstein's theories, or any of his theories. The real consequences, the fact that to have the intense time dilation, you also have to have an insane amount of velocity, and you can't have an insane amount of velocity unless you accelerate somewhere. Where did the astronauts ever do any accelerating? Oh yeah, they did this. They got, I got pushed back in my chair. Yeah, they'd have to get pushed back in their chair for 10,000 years to have the same gravitational effect. Or they'd have to get so pushed back in their chair that they'd be as thin as a piece of, spaghetti. They'd be spaghettified by the acceleration. So that's the only way it could possibly physically really happen. And yet this is how serious the physicist takes his physics. So the guy who was instrumental in Ligo, got the Nobel Prize for Ligo, is the same asshole who thinks you can time dilate without ever having to accelerate. Massively accelerate. He's an asshole.
Which was only like 4 years after I graduated. I was like, what? No.
Oh, it's only 4 years, so this is her passion, and yet 4 years after she graduated, the LIGO thing. What were you doing for the other 4 years? Oh, making YouTube videos, I guess.
Gravity is cool. It's also weird. It doesn't affect space instantaneously. If the sun suddenly
So this is something that doesn't have anything to do with LIGO, right? This just has to do with the fact that we understand about gravity, that gravity is a force. Like light, it's moving the speed of force. Like all the other forces, magnetism and gravity and photons, the entire electromagnetic spectrum, all of this stuff moves the same speed, and yet you think it's different stuff. You think bent space, an entirely different structure from photons, virtual photons in the case of magnetism, completely different mechanical structures, and you think they just coincidentally have the same exact speed. Oh, come on, too stupid.
disappeared, poof, the Earth would continue on orbiting as if the sun were still there for 8 minutes and 20 more seconds until that information about the change in the gravitational field would get to us. And then, yes, there wouldn't be any more of that difference because there'd be no difference in the force anymore, and so there'd be balance, and the Earth would just go about its way in a straight Earth would
line.
fly off into space. But at that same instant,
In a straight
light
line.
would reach us too, and we would see that the sun is gone. But you know what that means? The speed of gravity and the speed of light are the same. That's one of the...
So a little jump cut with the... What? How is that? What? What a surprise! No, that's been known for a long, long time. So, no big news there.
Many things that we've confirmed, down to the order of 10 to the minus 15, from the detection of gravitational waves.
Okay, so their detector allowed them to confirm something 10 to the minus 15 bullshit, right? Oh yes, we detected the thickness of a human hair at the distance of Alpha Centauri. Kind of bullshit. Just made up. They didn't do any such detecting. They didn't sit there and take something of regular size and put it right outside of their tunnel, like a little swinging weight, and prove that, oh yeah, our detector can detect the gravitational movement of this heavy weight. They didn't do any of these experiments to demonstrate how sensitive their instrument is. Nothing. I mean, I don't know a good analogy for it, but they never tested this instrument with anything rational or normal, where you could get a real where you could get some real idea of what its sensitivity is. There's no sensitivity test.
And those giant concrete tunnels, those are the exoskeleton of 2 giant arms of the first gravitational wave detector.
So this is amazing. So 4 years after everybody's already seen all these, right? Anybody interested in physics has already seen all of this shit over and over again. Why the fuck is she doing this redundancy? Oh, because she has no imagination and can't figure out what to talk about next.
LIGO. Gravitational wave detectors have to be huge because they need to detect waves coming from billions of light years away. They're so sensitive that trucks nearby affect the signal.
So why don't we have evidence of that? So again, just more nonsense, right? They affect the signal in some unknown way. Well, don't you have a 10 to the minus 15 calculation, of the exact effect? Why haven't you measured the exact effect? You could buy a truck, right? I'm sure if you can afford all of this cement tunnel crap and vacuums and all this crap, I'm sure you could afford a truck and just drive the truck next to the tunnel and see exactly how sensitive the instrument is.
When we were there, they told us to accelerate and decelerate slowly so as not to disturb the detector.
Right, and why don't we have any evidence that could possibly be detected by the detector? Why don't they just show us the evidence? Look, we got this evidence. We can show you. I can drop a feather on top of it, and it, boom, the feather hits, and look, we get a blah, 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 blah signal. So we know exactly how sensitive this thing is. Why aren't any of those tests in any way public or in any way demonstrated in a video somewhere? That's a real practical thing you can do right in people's faces. You can show how sensitive your instrument is. A sunspot on the sun, boom! I got it right here on my detector. Here it is. Here it is. We've had seismographs for 100 years more. We see the earthquake, the whole thing. Why aren't we seeing any of this data? If this is happening, why don't we see any of it? Why is that a big secret?
And also, the AC unit is not even connected to the building. They had to put it in a separate enclosure.
The AC unit? You mean the generator?
On springs so that it wouldn't mess with the signal. And then there's this.
Those liquid nitrogen tanks have tubes that go inside. They carry the liquid nitrogen inside.
Yeah.
And they were getting ice around those tubes. Yeah. And the ravens were coming out and pecking at that.
Oh my god.
And that little bit of...
No, and that little bit of noise incredibly close to the instrumentality could be detected. Yes, that would make perfectly good sense because it's not even close to a light year away, is it? But we're talking about billions of light years away. Something happens 4 or 5 billion light years away. And by Einstein's mathematics, the ability of that event to transmit any detectable signal this far, as Einstein stated, it's not possible. Okay, even if there were gravitational waves, he said it'd be impossible to detect them. There's no rational theory. So they had to make up a theory. They had to make up some kind of crap that all of a sudden a bunch of solar masses get converted into this gravitational wave, and somehow this gravitational wave doesn't disturb anything in the nearby vicinity. It doesn't blow anything up. So you have a huge explosion, except, oh, it's a quiet explosion. It's a whispering explosion, except it's a really deep whisper. It's just bullshit.
vibration coupled back into the interferometer.
But that insane sensitivity allows...
So again, insane sensitivity that we don't get any evidence that exists. Just no evidence whatsoever. Again, if I owned this stupid thing, I'd be proving all the time how sensitive it was. Every time there was an event, the building falls down in New York City. Hey, I got it right here. I mean, this is just such bullshit.
allowed us to detect an entirely new type of phenomenon.
Yes, one made up, entirely made up, a new phenomenon that doesn't exist in the real world. It just exists in your fantasies. And you haven't proven in any way that it's something other than just your fantasies. There's nothing but your theory to substantiate it as a truth. There's no evidence that two masses did what you said you did because there's this squiggle in your frickin' detector.
To tell you how the detector works.
So this is like a cross-section of what the cement tunnel would look like.
This is one of the sections of the concrete structure, the beam tube cover.
The concrete tunnels house two 4-kilometer long tubes made of metal that are actually under vacuum, which is surprising because the metal is pretty thin.
This is the section of the beam tube itself.
Gotcha. So that is holding the vacuum. Whoa.
A powerful laser is shot out and split into two beams.
Right, and by what? Magic? What's the splitter made of? How does the splitter make two equal beams? So again, I'll just say this however many times it takes to say it, but what's the theory of how the beams are the same in this splitting where you allow one to go through something and one to reflect off of it? So you're saying a transmission is the same as a reflection, which to somebody who knows anything about physics, they should be a little doubtful that those two things would be the same. So why don't you just split the beam in two by having the left side of the beam go one way and the right side go the other way? Why are you transmitting the beam? Why don't you just set up a little reflective prism and just have the beam split that way? Because then you're going to have, more likely going to have two equal beams. Transmitting and reflecting are just two fundamentally different phenomenon.
And each is sent off into the X and Y arms of the detector. That's what they call them. Then, depending on the distance those laser beams travel, when they meet back up again, the waves add and they interfere.
Yeah, so there's no evidence of this adding. How do they add? How do they do that? How do the beams add? When no other force adds ever, there's no evidence you can add forces. They are in a, what's the right word for that? Not symmetry. I always forget that word. But anyway, forces don't add that way.
And make patterns, like waves that overlap in water making patterns.
So again, why don't you do a single little thing bouncing up and down and show me where the interference is, like the single slit? Why does the wave break in two in the single slit? Well, I don't know. I just make up some kind of crap that it has to. Unlike water waves. Completely unlike water waves.
Space is stretched or squeezed in one of the directions by passing gravitational.
Again, just more crap. I can tell you just, frankly, that, yes, this has to do with pressure of a real field, which is a real force. So it's real stuff that hits stuff that makes it move. So in that sense, yes, it's real stuff. You can push stuff. But this idea that you can push it without pushing it, well, I can hit it, but it doesn't move. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Waves. The laser beam in that arm will travel a shorter or longer distance, affecting how the two beams, add up when they're recombined. And we can tell space has been stretched by a gravitational wave.
So we're trying to do...
Yes, you can tell one dimension from the other. So it came at you from the bottom, or it came at you from the side. And so you'll see the difference because the path length of the mirrors, they say, changes. But that's all they just say that's what happens. And they say that there's no other thing that could be causing these mirrors to be moving. And again, they're talking about half the distance of a proton or something, the amount of movement they're detecting. So frankly, this detecting bullshit has to do with not the mirror moving, but the atoms inside of the mirror moving, which gets even more complicated. But that's what they're saying they're measuring, is tiny movements like that. Now, do we realistically think they can tell that a proton moved half of its width somewhere? Get real.
Do everything possible to keep any particulates out.
We're just hairnet and shoe covers.
Yeah, so all your shirt fibers, all the other erroneous hairs and whatnot that might fall off of you. Well, who cares about that shit? Those are little ones. Those don't matter.
Going into the experiment hall from what I remember, because I've been here before, this is the laser. Like that enclosure over there is the laser.
Absolutely.
That infrared laser beam comes out of that big building thing over there.
I don't think it's infrared. Actually, I thought it was a green laser, but it doesn't really matter. The point is that it's, yes, a giant amount of light. Why is it so much light? Right? I mean, just in a conservative sense, why do I need that much light? I mean, I could shoot a laser pointer 4 miles, no problem. Why do I need that much light?
And through here, and then this is where it splits into the two beams.
And then when they come back,
So she just says it splits into the two beams by some process, the magic split thing. So obviously it's fundamental to the whole theory here, because their theory must, you realistically, you must say that they think that if they sent single photons in, that this single photons would be turned into two photons at the splitter, right? That's the only way it could possibly work. Yet we got no explanation of what the splitter is.
and they merge here as well.
So down this way we come to where we got.
The photodiodes.
This is where the gravitational wave signal is detected, yeah.
So they just see the light again, and again they're seeing the light of one of the branches diverging. That means changing its intensity based on how much it's spreading. So they're reading intensity, but the intensity, it doesn't have anything to do with the intensity of the amount of light. It has to do with how much light you're actually seeing because the light's spreading.
That was the photodiode that detected the actual first gravitational wave. And I got to hold it. Kind of.
Oh boy, that's just too special.
I got close to it. Well, you told me not to touch it. Now, the next thing to consider is where to put one of these detectors. You can't just put it anywhere. They have to be far away from earthquakes or people because they move too much. Some people can't stop moving.
Right, like you can't filter for earthquakes. Yeah, I think you probably could.
You can't even have the laser going through the air because there's too much noise and just the gas in the atmosphere. So the tubes of the detector arms are completely evacuated of everything. Plus there are other crazy considerations. The tunnels are so long that they have to correct for the curvature of Earth.
Over 4 kilometers, the Earth drops about 1.5 meters.
The detector is so sensitive, it's affected by quantum fluctuations.
Okay, so more just completely made up gibberish. Quantum fluctuations. Like they proved one of those exists. No, they haven't proved any of this stuff.
Which is essentially randomness caused by quantum mechanics in the...
Just more bullshit. More randomness created in your incomplete mathematics. Not in the universe, in your incomplete mathematical understanding. What you've formalized as the relationship between things. So you think 3 variables are controlling a system when there's actually 7 variables controlling a system, and you're just too stupid to figure out you're missing the other 4 variables.
Mirrors. Some of the problems that arise from noise are solved by having an identical detector nearly 2,000 miles away doing the exact same thing. There's another Ligo in Livingston, Louisiana, and when a gravitational wave passes through both detectors, the signals line up perfectly. And one more thing.
That isn't perfect. So again, still, why do they say words like they line up perfectly? Well, they're not perfect. Obviously, this is going down and this is going up, which isn't perfect at all. But let's say they're close enough to say these 2 signals were produced by the same thing. They were obviously produced in some ways different, and obviously your instrumentality isn't collecting the signals very perfectly if you can have one going up and one going down at the same time. So that doesn't make much sense. But yeah, so I don't know what they've detected now with this one in Europe. Whether they've really had any great successes in terms of having the same signal fit both, because as I understand the one detection, it was they validated it because the other detector didn't detect anything because it was in the blind spot. So that's what their explanation for why the other detector didn't detect it. Well, it's in the detector's blind spot, so that proves it's even more valid. Yeah.
Both detectors have 4-kilometer long arms, but they're actually effectively 1,200 kilometers.
And the light bounces back and forth on average about 300 times. So that makes the arm length not just 4 kilometers, but effectively 1,200 kilometers long.
That's
All right, so this is a fact I didn't know. So this makes it even more dicey. So they're sending the signal back and forth through the instrument, whatever he said, number of times. And you're supposed to be measuring the effect of the mirror moving, which is the little atoms in the mirror moving. Now, obviously, the beams are going to be hitting different atoms each time. You know, it's going back and forth. Yeah, no, that doesn't sound like a great idea.
And length matters here. You need the longer the arm, the larger the overall effect.
So that's so they've taken a system that's already dicey theoretically, and then now they've made it even dicier by sending the signal back and forth, which would only exaggerate any flaw or any error. Would only now get insanely exaggerated as a signal. So I didn't know they were doing that.
The gravitational wave has on the arms.
You know a clever way to get an even bigger detector? Put it in space. This is a real plan. I was like, how are they gonna launch vacuum tubes long enough up into space? Isn't that hard?
It's already a vacuum in space, retard.
And then they politely reminded me that space is a vacuum. Excellent point, space science.
Yeah, so you graduated from some kind of school? You had to have somebody explain that to you? Whoa. Whoa.
Scientists. Now, what kinds of things do you see with these detectors? Oh, just super violent events like neutron stars smashing into each other.
Yeah, again, they don't smash into each other. There's no theory for smashing into each other. There's no theory for a black hole moving half the speed of light. Because you have to understand, to move half the speed of light, it had to be accelerated to half the speed of light. That means all the atoms, all the stuff had to somehow be accelerated in all the same direction at a preposterously insane speed, somehow collect doing that. And there's no theory for that. So there's no theory for two things coming through space and then turning into one of these things. The only theory you can have is that there could be a binary system that started off binary, and that the two binary objects over time somehow, okay, by some other theory, you know, the one object got denser and the other object got lighter by some theory, and that eventually the one object would collide into the other object, but it would be hardly at the same kind of thing as the two forces interacting in a head-on collision or some kind of crap like that. So it's not exactly accurate at all. There's no gravitational theory for any of this crap.
The first detection was two giant, enormous black holes colliding 1.3 billion light years away.
Two black holes.
Right, and there's no theory for it. So again, and there's certainly no theory for the black holes to release parts of their solar mass, parts of their weight. 1/3 or 1/30th of their weight just falls off and turns into a force that we can't see.
Let's take the first event.
Yeah.
You can tell from the waves on the ring down that this thing was 62 solar masses. So in that process, 3 times the mass of the sun were converted into gravitational wave energy.
Right, 3 times the mass of the sun. So again, a preposterous amount of energy. Just again, E equals mc squared. We know that this battery could blow up the Earth. The amount of energy is just in the mass. If I could convert the mass into force, it blows the Earth up. They're talking about the sun doing that. So 3 completely nuke every single piece of energy out of 3 suns worth of energy. It's an insane amount of energy. There's no way that energy could have no effect on the surrounding space. It makes no fucking sense. Anything in the vicinity would be pushed by the explosion.
At the time, it was the most powerful astronomical event known to human beings because of that conversion, 3 times the mass of the sun in a quarter second. That outshines all the stars in the known universe for that quarter second. None of it's coming out in light. It's all coming out in gravitational waves.
And gravity waves are supposed to be essentially gravity. So it's coming out as a force, as a thing that pushes stuff.
That makes it a super exotic object.
Yeah.
Right? And many people ask, can you set off a nuclear bomb and measure the gravitational waves there? It's still a paltry amount compared to what.
See, he calls it a paltry amount. No, it's so damn fucking close. The fucking gravitational wave is 4, 5, 6, 9 light years away. It's an insane amount of distance, and the way gravity dies over distance means your wave is feeble by comparison to the force of a nuclear bomb you would detect. So again, this is such a lame excuse. Oh, we can't detect a nuclear bomb, but we can detect something 5 billion light years away.
You need to actually see it.
You heard him right. A nuclear bomb puts out an insignificant, meager amount of energy compared to what is measurable with gravitational waves.
So again, it's just silly. Proximity is everything in gravitational formulas. I mean, distance is everything.
How many nuclear bombs this actually is? Can you hand me my laptop? Thank you. It says 3 solar masses, 5 times 10 to the 47th joules versus 2 times 10 to the 10 to the 17th joules. The number of nuclear bombs in this collision, about 2 times 10 to the 30th. That's 2 with 30 zeros. Okay. That's not even a number I can fathom. Thank you.
Yeah. So go ahead and put the distance of 4 billion light years into miles and figure out how many miles away it is. And then you'll figure out that, oh, yeah, the nuclear bomb should be much louder than the gravitational wave.
The only reason they're so small when they get to us is they've been traveling through the universe for 1 billion years. When they first happened, they were
More than a billion. So again, 4, 5, 9 billion.
very concentrated here, right?
Yeah.
And as they start radiating outward, they don't attenuate as they go through matter. But as it goes out,
They don't attenuate as they go through matter. Does that make any sense? What does that mean? They don't attenuate as they go through matter. They don't slow down. They don't get absorbed by the matter. They just magically go right through it by some magical formula. Gravity doesn't go right through anything. That's why the moon's orbiting the Earth and the Earth is orbiting the sun, is because the gravity doesn't go through it. It actually affects it and forces it to move. So they don't think the force is absorbed to create motion. I mean, it's retarded.
you're now covering a bigger volume. The whole wave together would have the same amount of energy.
Right.
But the amplitude has to go down because it's been spread out so much more. So by the time
Yeah, so let's understand. They've made this whole theory of converting all of the mass into force, solar masses into force, even though we have no place that ever happens. So novas, when a sun novas, a tiny percentage of the mass is converted into energy. Tiny, not the whole mass, not solar masses. It's nonsense.
comes to us a billion years after the collision, they're exceedingly small.
One of the reasons that the waves are so small is that space is really, really stiff. It resists being stretched by a lot. It's the stiffest, strongest stuff thing. I'm not really sure what word to use.
This is just baby talk, right? I mean, the stiffness of space, this stiffness of nothing, right? So this isn't anything Einstein ever talked about, the stiffness of space. What a pile of crap.
To describe space, but it's the stiffest medium that we know of.
If you look at what is the
Just nonsense. I never even heard somebody say the stiffness of space. This is just too fucking stupid.
in general relativity is effectively the Young's modulus of space-time,
Yeah.
which in materials, Young modulus tells you like how compressible.
Oh yeah, Young's modulus. What is this crap? It's just crap.
Something is.
Right.
You could say, oh, here's the Young's modulus of space-time, and let's compare that to steel.
The Young's modulus is kind of a funny number to use as a reference for the stiffness of space because it's usually a number that describes how stiff materials are. So for example, if you compared space to steel, space is 10 to the 20 times, 20 orders of magnitude stiffer than steel. The number.
So again, this is just bullshit. This, nothing is stiff. Oh please, it's just so fucking stupid. I don't even know why they're using this concept. I guess because it's a wave thing, so they have to try to make it wavy. They have to make the medium wavy, and so it has to be able to transmit high frequencies. And so I guess they're going based on how high the frequency is would be correlate to the stiffness of the medium. When again, do you really think that's how it works? Space is vibrating cosmic rays. You really think so?
The numbers we're dealing with here are just unbelievable.
That's why we need black holes and neutron stars, stars exploding, the birth of the universe. These are the kind of things that are actually going to create vibrations in space that will be large enough in amplitude for us to see.
That first collision event
It's horse shit.
was 1.3 billion light years away, which means that it took 1.3 billion years to get to us. That's why when it finally got here, it only changed the length of one of the arms of the detector by 1/1000th the width of a proton.
All right, so you believe that. You believe they're detecting movements in materials of 1/1000th of the width of a proton. Please.
If you can wrap your head around how small that is, then you're saying to yourself right now, no, that's not possible. That's too small. And if you can't wrap your head around how small that is, congratulations, you are human.
It's so small. I'm just lost.
You talked about breaking our brains, right? Like
Yeah.
the melting of our
Yes. I'm talking about bullshit. Yes, and this is all bullshit. Completely frankly documented bullshit.
brains just thinking about scale alone. And I think it helps us understand our place in the universe too.
Yeah.
And then helping people see that it's this beautiful science that
Oh, so this more just our place in the beautiful verse. Blah 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 blah. This is all just such sappy religious crap.
explains so much.
Yeah.
I couldn't ask for a better job.
I relate so hard. I relate to all of this.
Since the first collision, LIGO has detected 30 more collisions of black holes, neutron stars, violent events powerful enough to create gravitational waves
They've made up 30 more silly stories.
that we could detect. And we've learned such incredible things from these collisions, because this is a new type of astronomy.
So they learn from their made-up fantasy stories. It verifies what we always thought. It's all beautiful and magical.
We're able to learn that when two black holes collide, which are usually very spherical objects, they
Usually very spherical. So she couldn't even say, well, they have to be spherical. That's part of the math. It kind of dictates it, because there's no way you can have that much mass, and there's no force on Earth that could ever protrude, be irregular on the surface of a black hole. You can possibly have any irregularity because of that whole stiffness argument, because the stuff is so unyielding, it won't allow any deviations.
have a ring down phase where they turn into this lumpy weird thing that rings down like a bell. And what we see at the end of the signal is that ring down. We can learn something about...
Yeah, it's more horseshit. Again, this whole theory, there's no collision, there's a merger at best. And if you're contriving a collision, then you have to have the two objects come from remote places in space, and there's no way they can remotely come from remote locations gravitationally, two heavy objects, and do anything but collide head-on right into each other. So somehow that never happens. Why do they always ring down? Why?
A phenomenon we would never be able to see with our current technology with a telescope. Whew. LIGO is so...
You can't even see the black hole, so I guess obviously you can't see it, and I don't know what other reason it would be why you say you can't see it. Well, obviously you can't take video of the universe, so you can't see events over time very well, but you have to take time-lapse photographs just to see one moment. And so all the moments get blurred. Anything that's happening as an event would be a blurred event.
Oh, freaking cool. And the people at LIGO...
Cool, it's just such a pile of crap.
Ligo were so amazing. I feel incredibly lucky to have been able to gone back there.
Oh, that's good English, yes.
Because I actually went once before for the Stellar episode with PBS. You may have seen that. Went out a couple months ago. This time I brought a bunch.
A couple of months ago, so you know, 4 years late. You know, doing Ligo videos.
Of your questions from Twitter and asked them to Dr. Michael Landry, who was the head of Ligo Hanford. And I was so fascinated by his answers that we're going to make an entire video with just that interview.
Oh,
so
yeah,
you can look out for
special,
that next
yes.
week. It's going to feed all of your curiosity, but mostly my curiosity, on gravitational waves and Ligo and space and more. Check back in for that next week. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching and happy.
So let's understand, the guy who theorized that any of this crap is possible, Kip Thorne, who's part of the whole fucking make up this story about turning masses into fucking forces and all this horse shit. It's the same guy who made this crappy Interstellar movie that doesn't have one piece of real physics in it. Cement fucking space stations. Well, we got the gravity formula and figured out how we could send giant cement space stations into Saturn's orbit and shit, you know, with our special formula. Fuck.
Physicsing.
Physicsing, yes. It is so bad. Bad, horrible, awful, terrible nonsense. Crap physics. Crap science. I mean, it's just fucking totally unevidenced horseshit. Anyway, enough of this. So, till the next time, and such. And so forth and whatnot.